Call the meeting to order, or the open session to order. Would you please call the roll?
Yes. Archie. Yes. Baronis. Here. Bolin.
Present.
Gathing.
Present.
Johnston.
Here.
Verrett.
Present.
Williams.
Here. All present. At this point, we need to open the public hearing, but let's do the Pledge of Allegiance first.
Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Because we're in the process of selling some bonds or issuing some bonds related to our Wicked Cash Fund, we have to have a public hearing. So that's going to be first. I'll call that to order. Would you do another roll call, please?
Archie.
Yes.
Baronis. Yes. Bolin.
Yes.
Gathing.
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Verrett.
Yes.
Williams.
Here.
So the purpose of this public hearing is concerning the intent of the Board of Education, Kankakee School District 111, to sell bonds not to exceed $7 million in working cash fund bonds for the purposes of increasing the district's working cash fund. At this point, we can open it for any public comment on that question. Is there any public comment on the issue of the working cash fund bonds? Is there any public comment on the issue of, or the question of issuing the working cash fund bonds? Having called the question 3 times, hearing no response, we will at this point adjourn. I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Gathing, seconded by Ms. Johnson. Please call the roll.
Archie.
Yes.
Baronis. Yes. Gathing.
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Verrett.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Bolin.
Yes. The motion to adjourn is passed, and now we need a motion to close that public hearing.
So move.
Motion by Gathing, seconded by
Second.
Ms. Johnson. Please call the roll.
Baronis. Yes. Gathing.
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Verrett.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Archie.
Yes.
Bolin.
Yes. Thank you. That closes the public hearing on the issuance of the working cash fund bonds. Please do another roll call for the regular session.
Archie.
Show who's here.
Baronis. Yes. Bolin.
Present.
Gathing.
Present.
Johnston.
Here.
Verrett.
Present.
Williams.
Here.
All 7 are still here. We didn't lose anybody in that process. Good. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's move to the Superintendents Report, which is first regarding instruction, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're working diligently, starting as soon as the last day of school. Our administrators work really hard for preparing for the beginning of the school year. We do have a lot of personnel, and Ms. Fountain will talk a little bit about the hiring that we've done. We've also done a lot of training. We had our student engagement conference last week on Monday and Tuesday, and our new staff orientation started the previous week. And so we're well on our way to starting the first day of school, which is August 21st for students and August 17th for the teachers and the staff. I will say that this has been a different summer. It doesn't feel like we had any breaks at all, but I really think that the hard work that we did all summer will result into having a really, really strong school year, so that we'll start off the first day of school really strong. I don't have anything else for instruction. At our next curriculum committee meeting, which is around October maybe, we will talk a little bit more in depth about all of the curriculum materials that we're using and our plan from pre-K through 21 to make sure that all of our students are receiving high-quality instruction. What day is it?
September 9th.
September 9th
No.
will be our
13th.
September 13th will be our next curriculum committee meeting.
Okay. Thank you. That takes us to finance, and we need to have Yes.
Good evening. This evening, we have Mr.
Right here.
You should be sitting down over there.
Oh,
They don't like it.
It's all right, sir, you're still in training.
good evening. This evening, we have Mr. Bob Lewis, no relation, from PMA Securities to give you an overview of what you all just held a public hearing for surrounding working cash. This all feeds in collectively. So, Mr. Lewis, please come forward.
Yeah, so good evening, Board, Mr. President, Dr. Walters. So the next steps related to the bonds, which you just held the hearing for, is the Board would consider approval of a parameters resolution at your next meeting this month. And then we expect to proceed with the sales bonds a few weeks afterwards. So you'll have those proceeds available for the construction projects that you need them for. Additionally, tonight we have a presentation about a potential change to one of your outstanding bond issues, the qualified school construction bonds that you did back in 2016 and 2017. And it's about a strategy to enhance an aspect of those qualified school construction bonds. So just a brief overview. I'm on page 2 of the presentation. I apologize, I don't remember which one of you board members were on the board back in 16 or 17, so there'd be a review
Jeff.
for. Yes, you, okay. And the rest of you, this may be new information then. So normally when you sell your municipal bonds, they're issued as tax exempt. And what that means is your investors who buy your bonds don't have to pay taxes on the interest that you pay them. And that gives you a lower or subsidized interest rate. Occasionally, the federal government comes out with special programs that provide a larger benefit than the standard tax-exempt municipal bonds have. And they created such a program as part of the ARA program when we were coming out of the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. And they were called Qualified School Construction Bonds. And each state was provided an allocation depending upon the population of the state. So Illinois was granted about $500 million worth. Half of that went right to CPS. The other half was available to the local school districts. And our state, for reasons we don't know, waited about 8 years to allocate that to the local school districts, well after the recession was over, mind you. And your district was fortunate after you submitted an application to receive a part of an allocation of the $250 million. So the way that these bonds differ, instead of you getting a break off the interest rate because your investors don't have to pay taxes, you actually have a full taxable interest rate. So you're foregoing that in exchange for the federal government paying you a subsidy directly to offset nearly all the interest cost. And that reduced the net borrowing rate on the 2016 and 17 bond. We sold them in 2 series. I won't get into the reason why we did that. But it reduces the net interest rate on those bonds to about 0.5%, 0.5%. So you can't ever get money that cheaply. So that's all the good news. And actually, this is all a good news presentation. This is all about enhancement to make it better news. So on page 3, well, these bonds have another aspect that most bond issues don't have. And they have what's called the sinking fund. So normally when you make your payments on your bond issues, you're paying interest and you're reducing principal. Just like we do when we make our car payments, our mortgage payments, we make a payment, it reduces your balance on your mortgage every month you make a payment. Well, the difference on these bonds is that payment that you make that's like principal annually, it doesn't reduce the borrowing amount, it goes to a sinking fund to pay off the principal at maturity. And that has 2 benefits for you. One, it keeps the subsidy in place throughout the life of the bonds without any reduction in subsidy that you're receiving. And 2, while that money's in the sinking fund, waiting to pay off the principal at maturity, you're earning interest on it. So it gives you an additional benefit on these bonds. The one aspect of that sinking fund, though, and this is where we're getting into what we're talking about revising, is you're limited to earn no more than approximately 2.25% on that fund over the life of the bonds. That was another stipulation that the IRS had when the bonds were sold. When the sinking fund agreement was set up with Zions Bank, the restriction, when the attorneys drafted the documents, was set up so that each individual investment won't exceed 2.25% roughly. But it's really the investment rate in the aggregate can exceed 2.25%. And I don't think anybody imagined at the time the QSCBs were done that we'd be in an interest rate environment we are now, where you can actually get treasury yields in excess of 5%, right? So the revision we want to do, I'm sorry this is technical, but hopefully it's all made sense up to now. The revision we want to do is to change it so that individual investments can exceed the 2.25%. Because it's the aggregate that can't exceed 2.25%. Now, why does that benefit you? Because we're in a really high interest rate environment now. So you like to invest at the maximum rate you could get, which is going to be in excess of 4% in the sinking fund. So that when you get towards the end of the sinking fund, which is about 15 to 17 years from now, that if you're in an extremely low historical interest rate environment at that time, that'll be okay because you built up all that momentum in these earlier years when interest rates are higher. Now, in order to take advantage of it, though, why the original strategy I think was put in place is because the sinking fund agent, Zions Bank, isn't going to do the complex calculations that will be required if you change the strategy. Because they just simply, they get the money from you in the sinking fund, they go out and they get 2.25%. And so the complication that arises is that now you need somebody to direct Zions Bank to make these investments in this amount, to mature this date and at this interest rate, and then to monitor compliance every 6 months until these are paid off in roughly 15 to 18 years. And so that's where our firm, and you're not the only school district I'm talking to, remember there's 26 school districts that got this, we're talking to many of them about revising their sinking fund agreements, where we would step in to be that calculation agent to provide that direction every 6 months so you can take advantage of interest rates when they're higher. Because you can't take the lid off, you will, on the cap without somebody monitoring this, because you don't want to get in a point in time where you've earned too much interest earnings, because then you can run afoul of the rules of the IRS, which we don't want to do individually, and you don't want to do as a school district either. So that's another, I've sort of gone through the entire presentation besides 5 and 6, but that's another resolution we'd like the board to consider at your meeting on August 28th to amend the underlying sinking fund agreement so that when the next time you have to make an investment, which will be January 1st of 24, that at that point in time, the direction can be given to Zions Bank to buy the maximum rate available, which we would calculate and provide them direction to do.
Okay. That will be, will we have a finance committee meeting before the 28th? Or no?
We should have one this month.
No, it's the 31st.
Oh, okay. Well, we will discuss this in some form or fashion.
Okay.
And
Well, if you prefer to discuss it at finance, there's no rush to have it approved on the 28th. We were just thought the 28th because you're already considering the board
Sure.
resolution, but if you need to discuss it at finance, you can, we have the January 1st, right?
so I think if you could, we'll have Rachel contact you to see if you would be available for the finance committee meeting. So if we have any questions.
It'd be saturated.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Mr. Lewis will ask you to make contact
Not a problem.
for the finance committee meeting. I don't think we'll have a lot of
First.
questions, but in case we do, that might be the way we can talk about it.
Okay, sounds good.
But I appreciate you bringing this. I had no idea this was a possibility, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, none of us imagined this interest rate environment a
That's
few
true.
years ago.
That's
So-
true. So as you anticipate the sale of the working cash fund bonds, is there a rate that you're looking at on that?
Yeah, we anticipate based off recent sales, it would probably be around 4%. The good thing about your working cash bonds is when you've sold those, we've always kept them relatively short.
Right.
Which helps to minimize the amount of interest that you're paying back. Except when we did the QSCBs, because the net rate was 0.5%. That made sense to amortize as long as
Stretch
possible.
those out, right.
Right.
Okay.
In fact, the law was even changed to allow school districts that got a QSCB allocation to go out 25 years instead of 20, which, you want to keep them outstanding as long as possible when your interest rate's close to zero.
Sure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lewis. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your presentation. Were there any other questions? I'm sorry, I was just blindly moving on here. Hearing none, okay, thank you. We're all
very
good.
much.
Thank you.
So also, board members, before you is a draft financial summary. And thank you, Dr. Walters, for reminding me of how we'd like to present the monthly financial statements to the board. The only thing that's, I'm not going to call it missing, is I like to see a summary by aggregate. For example, every fund may have local sources, state sources, federal sources by fund. And one thing that I requested in this summary, which I really like it, is that we break it out by fund so you all can see how each individual fund is performing and not just in aggregate how funds are performing. I think that'd be a useful optic for the board.
Thank you.
Okay?
That's good. You all found your report, correct? Your materials? Okay. Any questions of Mr. Lewis on that? Okay, you got off easy.
This time.
Thank you. All right, moving ahead to Superintendent's Report, Personnel or Human Resources.
Good evening, Board of Education, Dr. Walters. I would just like to introduce our staff. We know that school starts next week. I can't believe how quickly July went by, but we will be starting school next week. And I do want to introduce our staff, all of our staff, for this upcoming school year. So we have Dr. Janira Walters as our superintendent, myself, Ms. Fountain, as the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and then Mr. Cedric Lewis, the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Finance. I'm going to ask, if you are here, could you please stand, starting with our directors. We have Ms. Carrie Clody. She is the Director of Special Education. Ms. Pamela Powell, Director of Early Childhood. Ms. Jennifer Way, Director of District Improvement. Ms. Kim Starkey, Director of Student Support Services. Ms. Stephanie Morgan Harris, Student Support Services Supervisor. Ms. Edith Petty, Director of Bilingual Education. And Ms. Gabrielle Garrett, the Director of Secondary Education. Going to our buildings at Taft School, we have Ms. Kendra Leffridge as the principal. I know she was here. Oh, right there. And we have Mr. Jonathan Clark as the assistant principal. And Mark Twain, we have Dr. Vernita Sims. Edison, Mr. Carol Kuster. Subin, Mr. George Harris. Our 4 through 6 buildings, Lincoln Cultural Center, we have Ms. Adrienne West, principal, Ms. Joya Crosley, assistant principal. At Kennedy Middle School, Ms. Bonita Arsenal Anderson as principal, Ms. Amanda Grace, assistant principal. King Middle School, Ms. Candace Jackson is the principal, and Ms. Gina Turrell is the assistant principal. At Kankakee Junior High, Ms. Stacy Glenn, principal. Ms. Michelle Dow, she will be before you tonight. And Ms. Sharon Sykes, the Dean of Restorative Practices.
And then we have somebody else that'll be before us. Okay.
See, I wasn't supposed to put Ms. Dow's name there already.
So you
We
might,
have Mr. James Stevenson, assistant principal.
He's what?
And I will do formal introductions after my presentation. For Kankakee High School, we have Dr. Albert Brass as the principal, Mr. Calvin Wirfs, assistant principal, Mr. Bradley, Mr. B, because I always say his name incorrectly and I don't want to mispronounce it. And then we have Ms. Tracy Steele as the assistant principal and Ms. Tamira Williams, innovative administrator. So before you tonight, we have 3 candidates, one for the assistant principal, all assistant principals, one for the high school, and 2 for Kankakee Junior High. So we're going to start off with Mr. James Stevenson. Can you please stand? He is being recommended as the assistant principal at Kankakee Junior High. Mr. Stevenson has a bachelor's degree from Western Illinois University. and a master's degree from Olivet Nazarene University, and he has been with Kankakee School District 111 since 2016. And also for the junior high, we have Miss Michelle Dahl. Ms. Dahl has a bachelor's degree from Eastern Illinois University. She has 3 master's degrees, two at Governor State, and 1 at Concordia University. And Ms. Dahl has been in KSD 111 for over 16 years. And we have Mr. Jason Warden as assistant principal of the high school. I don't know if he's here. Mr. Warden has over 17 years here at KSD 111. He has his bachelor's degree from Western Michigan University, his master's degree from Governor State University. And again, he has been here in Kankakee School District for over 17 years. So those are the candidates that are before you for assistant principals for the school district. Are there any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fountain. Okay, at this point, are there any public comments? Thank you. We have nobody who has requested to make public comments. So moving on to the consent agenda, do any of the board members have any questions regarding any of the 14 items on the consent agenda or any request to move any of those from the consent agenda? I won't ask 3 times, hearing none. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Gathing. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Johnson. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Gathing,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes.
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie,
Yes.
Baronis,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes. Motion carries 7 ayes, 0 noes. Moving on to the action items. The first is the approval of the tentative budget. I hope you've had the chance to review that. There will be a public hearing on that coming up and then final approval. Motion to approve the 2023-2024 tentative budget.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Gathing. Second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Johnson. We're in a rut. Here we go. Any discussion or questions regarding the tentative budget? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Johnston,
Yes.
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie, Baronis,
Yes.
Gathing,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes. Motion carries 7 ayes, 0 noes. Second item on the action agenda is approval of the public hearing date for our budget and setting it for September 13th of 2023. Is there a motion to do that?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Gathing.
Second.
Second by Mr. Williams. Any discussion? None, please call the roll.
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie,
Yes.
Baronis,
Yes.
Gathing,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes, motion carries 7 ayes, 0 noes. There is no old business, and there's information regarding FOIAs and the previous bill run that has been presented to you. Our next meeting is August the 28th, and that will be at Kankakee High School. But more importantly, August 21st is the first day of school. Are you all ready? Okay, I hear resounding silence. And August 17th, that's this Thursday, is the back-to-school bash, starting at 2 p.m. and the football field, and then the preview starts, I believe, at 5.
About 5.
5. So we'll see you all then, and see you all on August 21st in your respective buildings. I do appreciate all the principals that were here tonight, and the assistant principals that are here tonight, and the directors, and the other administrators. This is what's making it all work, so thank you. If nothing else to be said, is there a motion to adjourn? What, you want me to?
No, I just want to know, was Mr. Hunt still Director of Security?
Say that again.
Yeah, I think that we were naming
Just the
Licensed
Academic
administrator,
director.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I did want to say something.
Is it
Because we
on
have
the-
other directors too, like we have food
Technology.
service, technology.
Oh, we don't want to name everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Miss,
I just
Ms.
wanted to welcome all our new appointments and all our current appointments, and I hope we have a successful school year, and thank you all. I know it's a love job, not a saying a money job, and we appreciate everything you all do for our students, and so we hope you have a successful school year, and we'll be backing you up as best we can.
Back us
Thank you.
up with the raise.
is there,
30% raise for you.
is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Gathing, seconded by Ms. Johnson. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carried. Thank you very